everybody. Today we're doing an Earth and Space Science activity, and we're going to be making a cloud in a jar. So the central focus is how clouds form, and there are a lot of concepts that go along with this activity, which include evaporation and condensation, which you'll see throughout this, as well as pollution, and then atmosphere and hydrosphere. So there are quite a few next generation science standards that you can use with this activity, but there are two that I'm going to focus on. The first one is 5-ESS2-1, develop a model using an example to describe ways the geosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and or atmosphere interact. So this activity would be an introduction to this standard using the hydrosphere and the atmosphere, and it can be related to the geosphere and biosphere as well after completing. So I would introduce students to this idea of what the hydrosphere and the atmosphere are, and then I would have them create this activity based on what they know with those vocab words. There would be e-learning involved, as they would be Googling, researching how to create a cloud and how they're formed to help them with this process, and then they'll explain how their model incorporates both the atmosphere and the hydrosphere, which is something we'll see in this activity. The other one is 4-ESS3-1, obtain and combine information to describe that energy and fuels are derived from their natural resources and their uses affect the environment. So this activity would be an addition to the standard, so it would be kind of like the second part. Students would already have talked about natural resources and energy and knowing what different resources we use for energy, such as coal. And so they would focus on the pollutants that would help form this cloud. So for this activity, we're using dry shampoo, but they could use other pollutants that I'll explain in a minute. And then we'd have a discussion on why pollution, especially from our natural resources that we use every day, affect clouds, cloud formations, and why some cities that have a lot of air pollution tend to have cloud coverage all the time. So planning considerations, a big thing is safety for this. You will be using boiling water like you can see on the stove. So this is something that teachers will be responsible for. Pouring the boiling water, you could have parent volunteers come in to help with this, but students should not touch this water. Another is glass. You're using a glass jar, so it could break, so go over safety procedures of broken glass, as well as this jar can get hot when you put the water in it, so make sure you have pot holders or oven mitts on hand. Another is you need to pre-teach vocabulary in order to help students gain an idea of what to do in this jar. If not, it could kind of seem confusing for them to create a cloud. So a challenge, this can be a little bit messy. There is water, it could spill, as well as you're spraying different items, so that could create a mess as well. The safety, like I talked about, and then there aren't a lot of moving parts, so this is something when you group your students, if you do mixed ability or if you do like by reading groups, however you group them, you need to make sure they work together and communicate well so every student can have a turn. Some benefits are that students can make real-world connections. They can compare this cloud to the ones they see outside. It can be a lead-in or a tie-in to so many different science concepts like I talked about, but including weather, climate, water cycle, and pollution, amongst others. So for this activity, you need a glass jar with a lid, you need boiling water, which I'll grab in a minute, ice cubes, and spray. So a lot of people tend to use hairspray for activities like these. Mine's not aerosol powered, so it's a little bit different. It doesn't work quite as well, but that could be something that students try. There's cooking spray you could try to use as your pollutant, so the water vapor grabs onto that. And I'll be using dry shampoo for this activity, so you can provide students a lot of different options just to see what works so they can kind of experiment a little bit. They could also try different water temperatures, cold water versus warm water versus boiling water, to see what happens as well. So what you'll do is you'll pour in some boiling or some super hot water, about halfway, and then you'll quickly pour in some dry shampoo or hairspray, your material of choice. Then the trick is to cover it very quickly to keep the aerosol in, or the spray, and then you will put on your ice cubes. So what you'll see happening is your water is going to start evaporating. It's going to turn into steam or water vapor, and it's going to mix with those dry shampoo particles, which are acting as your dust, your pollen, your pollutant, and it's creating a cloud because of the ice. It makes the lid very cold, and so when the water and the dust particles interact with the cold temperature, then it forms a cloud. It condenses into a cloud. water starting to swirl around and combine with that dry shampoo. So if you take the ice off the lid and you open it up, the cloud you formed will dissipate into the atmosphere. So this connects with the hydrosphere because the hydrosphere is the water on Earth. So we can pretend this is a lake of some sort, you have your water, and it mixes in the atmosphere with pollution typically, or dust particles, natural particles, depending on the area, to form those clouds up in the atmosphere. So this is a great model for that first standard that I discussed. And that's how you create a cloud in a jar. And next week we will be doing a biology experiment. So I'll see you then.